Hello, folks. We are here at the Champaign County Fair in Urbana, Ohio. We're in the midst of the exhibition projects and the 4-H projects going on. This particular fair has a absolutely awesome number of 4-H projects that youth have, ranging everything from cattle to lambs, goats, woodworking projects, electrical projects, dogs, you name it, there's all kinds of different projects here. And today we're going to talk about what happens in the beef industry. I have with me today Judge Ken Wells, who's judged today's show and has selected the champion and this sort of thing. Ken, we know that the 4-H beef projects, the carcass steers and the like, is one of the longest projects in 4-H. Would you explain that to us a little bit?
Well, Dr. Sanders, it certainly is one of the longest projects that the 4-Hers and FFA members can undertake. They started the project sometime in the fall, from September probably on into early January, picking out a project. Then it takes a significant investment in time and money both to get those calves to this point at the fair. It's not something that you just get that calf and turn him out and forget about him for a while. It takes an investment of time and effort every day from these students and young individuals, and it takes a lot of discipline, I think, in my opinion, to get a calf to this point and do a very good job with it. And I think it's certainly a project that should be commended for the young people.
Let's recap that just a little. They get this project in December or January at the very latest, and they're feeding it twice a day all the way till this is August. And as you said, it just isn't putting grain out. And it also is a little bit involved with selecting the right calf. And would you talk about, address that issue about selecting the calf and how they get them started?
Certainly. I think for all of us in the industry, it's you got to learn over the time to what the ideals are, what the things you're looking for in an ideal show calf. You want to pick a calf that you think is going to grow well. You want to pick a calf that's sound structurally, feet and legs, meaning that the animal can move about well on his own and not run into problems in terms of his mobility, which could affect the animal's ability to grow. And also his comfortability. I think that's another thing that's important about these projects, is that young people are certainly responsible for the health and welfare of an animal through that entire period as well.
And you know, one of the things that nobody ever talks about, they always talk about the carcass and the cutability and how many steaks that steer will make. Usually these calves are purchased and they're not exactly tame, are they?
No, that's correct. It also takes an investment of time and effort in breaking these calves to lead. It's a lot different from maybe the commercial industry, where someone would buy a calf and put it into a feedlot and not handle that calf. These animals are handled on a regular basis, and it takes a lot of work to get those calves, coat looking well and prepared, to get them broke and easy to handle, to come out here in the show ring and be able to handle an animal that's probably 10 times the weight of the student that may be handling that calf.
Let's talk about the cost of these projects. There's a significant investment here, isn't there?
Yeah, that's correct. A lot of young people go out and put a lot of money into just purchasing an animal to begin with, and then they want that animal to perform well and do well at the fair, so they certainly try to get the best of feed for those calves. Over the past couple of years, we've seen significant increases in the prices of feed that are going to go into these calves, into getting these cattle finished, and that's partially due to the energy costs and so forth in the marketplace today. So certainly students are going to have to learn to be a little bit more bit sharper with their pencils in terms of making a profit with these cattle, I guess.
One more thing that I'd like to talk about, and that is that you select these calves for the most muscling and the best bone structure and the like, and ultimately it's what happens on their grade and yield. Would you explain a little bit about that?
Well, sir, it's a bit of a extrapolation to look at the calves and try to guess what they're going to do in terms of what their carcass is going to look like from a grade and yield standpoint. But we've got things we can look at. We can look at muscle shape in the calves, in the rear end and the quarter, and down their top line, and we can handle those calves and feel and look at visual indicators of fat thickness and fat deposition, and that can give us a good idea of how those calves are going to do on the rail in terms of grade and yield. And then, from my perspective, when I put an emphasis on structural correctness, that's just going back and saying, even though we realize that the most important thing here probably is carcass quality and cutability, we still need to put some emphasis on having these cattle be functional and sound, and for not only for their own welfare, but for their ability to perform correctly.
And so basically what we're saying when we talk about cutability, we're talking about how many steaks we're going to get out of that calf, right?
Yeah, basically you're saying, look at, which one of these two calves, if you're comparing a couple of them, is going to yield more pounds of red meat compared to the amount of fat that they're going to yield out of that carcass.
Thank you, Judge Wells. That's it. We'll see you down the road.
Down the Road is brought to you in part by Prince Agra, makers of Omnigen AF, advancing animal nutrition for healthy animals, and Woodruff Enterprise of Springfield, Ohio,